Welcome to Deep Dive. Today we are tackling, well, what has to be one of the biggest cinematic gambles of the decade.
It really is.
We're strapping in for a journey that's been, 16 years in the making, analyzing the 2025 release that completely commanded global attention, Avatar. Fire and Ash.
It's such a fascinating cultural moment, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when a franchise spans 16 years from its first to its third movie, the weight of expectation is just, it's immense.
And that's what we're here for.
The sources we've gathered for this deep dive, they paint a picture of just immediate polarization.
Yeah.
You had this incredible anticipation, and it met a very, very complicated reality the second this film hit theaters.
Exactly, and that is our mission today. We're unpacking the paradox of this film. We've pulled together all the responses, critical, audience, cultural, figure out why Avatar, Fire and Ash was praised almost everywhere as this technical, groundbreaking miracle.
Well, but at the same time,
At the exact same time, it was critiqued for, failing to deliver a fresh story.
and it forces you to ask that question. Can spectacle alone carry a huge cinematic saga like this? Our sources really frame this third film as a perfect case study. It's a film built to prioritize that visual immersion above everything
A
else.
spectacle first and a story second.
That's it. It's a spectacle first, with the narrative just being the vehicle. And understanding that tension is, I think, the key to grasping the film's entire reception.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start where everyone agrees, where praise is just undisputed, the visual and technical side of things.
Right.
When people walked out of that theater, critics and audiences, what was the one thing everyone could agree on with Fire and Ash?
The word you see over and over is overwhelming. Visually overwhelming. It immediately cemented its place as having some of the most impressive cinematography, world building, and motion capture animation ever made.
So this wasn't just a small step up from The Way of Water.
Oh no, it was a significant leap. The sources are pretty clear that James Cameron didn't just maintain the status quo here, he genuinely pushed the limits of the medium. Again,
Oh.
he's using the latest digital photography, high-end 3D, IMAX, technologies that, frankly, most other big-budget blockbusters don't even try to compete with.
So the tech itself is part of the story.
Exactly. Some critiques even argue that the technical innovation is so advanced, it almost acts as a kind of visual compensation. It makes you forgive the narrative flaws because the pure experience is just so absorbing.
Let's talk about that experience, the world building, because that's the real reason you go back to Pandora. Was this just more of the ocean setting we saw last time, or did we get something genuinely new?
The world is so much deeper, richer, and way more diverse. And that really speaks to the film's massive scale.
Yeah.
The spectacle comes from exploring these totally new, unseen parts of Pandora.
And introducing new Na'vi cultures.
Entirely new cultures, which was huge.
Okay, tell us about them. They were a huge part of the marketing.
So we get two crucial new groups. First, and I think most dramatically, you have the fire-scarred Ash people. They're known as the Varang clan.
And they look completely different.
Completely. Their environment is all volcanic and arid. It's a total contrast to the lush blue forests or the turquoise oceans we've seen before. Their whole design, tougher skin, maybe a different kind of bioluminescence, it shows you that the Na'vis aren't just this one single culture. They are survivors, adapted to these incredibly harsh, destructive places.
That's a fantastic way to expand the world.
Yeah.
And what about the other group?
The sources also mention the nomadic sky people. Now, that name is a bit deceptive. It refers to a group of humans, or maybe humans living with the Na'vi, who operate in the skies and space above Pandora.
Ah, so they add a different kind of tension.
A totally different kind. It brings the human element back into sharp focus and gives the story more complex stakes than just humans are bad and Na'vi are good.
So here's the bottom line for you, the listener. Even the critics who really didn't like the story, they all basically admitted that the technical achievement, the sheer immersion of these new worlds, is
Yeah.
worth the ticket price.
But only if you see it in the right format.
Right. In IMAX, or high-end 3D, the film absolutely delivers on its promise of sensory overload.
It is a visual ritual, yes.
Yes.
And that is its greatest strength.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. If the visuals are universally praised, how do we end up with such a polarized reception? We have to switch over to the storytelling.
The flip side of the coin.
Yeah. So, for all its technical marvel, what were the major, consistent narrative criticisms against Fire and Ash?
Well, on one hand, the film does step into some suitably dark territory. Thematically, it's dealing with grief, loss, revenge, the survival of this fractured family.
Which feels like a necessary step after The Way of Water.
It is. And adding Varang the Ash People, that undeniably adds some moral complexity. But, and this is the big but, the shadow hanging over all of that is the charge of repetition.
So was it just continuity, or was Cameron really just running the same playbook again?
The sources are pretty specific on this. The criticism isn't that the film failed to connect to the saga. It's that James Cameron seems to be repeating his own narrative beats. We're talking about really familiar cycles.
Like what?
Family members get kidnapped, there are dramatic rescues, a seemingly invincible villain shows up, who then gets defeated in a massive climax, often involving water.
So critics are basically saying, amazing production design, but the story's blueprint is just a photocopy of his past work.
That's the summary, yes. The phrase you see a lot is visually stunning but narratively stagnating. The feeling was that despite the new fire world and the new clans, the actual story arc felt like something we'd already seen. Twice.
And there's hard data to back this up. It wasn't just a feeling a few reviewers had. This led to historically low scores for the franchise.
Exactly. This is where the contrast just becomes so stark. On Metacritic, the scores for Fire and Ash landed around 60 to 64, and Rotten Tomatoes was hovering around 68 to 71%.
Which for any other film would be fine. Decent, even.
Right. But for a global blockbuster that costs this much, and for this franchise, those are genuinely mixed results. They're the lowest critical scores of the entire Avatar series.
I do have to push back a little, though. If the movie is specifically designed to be the middle part of bridge film, isn't it a bit harsh for critics to expect some bold, self-contained, innovative story? Isn't its job to set up Avatar 4 and 5?
And that is precisely the debate that you see in the sources. The critics who defended it made that exact point. They argued its purpose was structural, it needed to move characters around and deepen conflicts, not start something new.
But that wasn't the majority view.
No. The majority view was that even a bridge film needs to justify a 3-hour runtime with its own narrative momentum, not just by setting the table for later. The complaint wasn't about a lack of closure. It was about predictable plotting.
That's a huge distinction to make. Okay, so let's get into the massive split this created. Franchise-led critical scores would normally spell trouble at the box office, but we know that's not what happened.
Not at all.
So how did the general public react? And why was their experience of that same repetition so fundamentally different from the critics?
This is truly the tale of two Pandoras. The audience response it blew the critical response away. Verified viewer ratings on Rotten Tomatoes showed a massive 90% plus positive reception.
Wow, that's a 30-point gap. That's huge.
It is, and it's incredibly telling.
So what explains that? Why did audiences embrace the very same familiarity that critics just rejected?
It really comes down to what you could call narrative nostalgia or world continuity. Critics, their job is to prioritize innovation. But audiences, especially fans of a long-running franchise, they often prioritize the simple joy of being transported back to a world they love.
So a critic see as stagnation, fans see as comfort.
Exactly. It's comforting continuity. Is their investment paying off? They enjoy seeing the characters they care about, Jake, Neytiri, the kids, navigating these challenges, even if the challenges are a bit predictable.
The narrative flaws just become an acceptable price to pay for the immersive experience.
Precisely. The viewers said they felt transported back to Pandora with real wonder. They loved the world-building details, the family stuff, and the evolution of characters like Varang and Spider. For the audience, the film delivered on the promise of return.
And the box office numbers confirm that. Huge global loyalty. The financial returns were substantial, reflecting that massive cultural pull.
Although, it's worth noting, the sources did indicate that opening numbers in some key markets, like China, actually underperformed compared to The Way of Water.
That's an important detail. But even so, the global total proves that for most viewers, the emotional connection and the visual immersion just overwhelmed any story disappointment.
They did.
Let's dig a little deeper into some of the specific elements here. Who really anchored this story emotionally, especially with the new conflicts from the Ash people?
Well, Zoe Saldana and Sam Worthington are still the emotional core, of course, through their motion capture. But the energy really shifted to the new players this time.
You mean Varang?
Luna Chaplin's Varang, the leader of the Ash people, was essential. She isn't some cartoon villain. She's a compelling antagonist with personal, specific motivations about survival and loss. She provided this fresh, dramatic energy that the Sully family arc really needed.
And the younger generation, they finally step up, right?
That's a key development. Characters like Spider, the human kid raised by the Na'vi and the younger Na'vi children, They mature a lot, they get more autonomous roles, they make their own choices that actually drive the plot.
So it's not all just about Jake and Neytiri anymore.
Right. It expands the emotional texture, ensuring the saga has roots that can grow beyond the original heroes.
The sources did flag one kind of weird thing, a sort of tonal imbalance.
Yes, critics noted that. You'll have these huge, sweeping action sequences right next to these very quiet, deep moments of familial grief. It can feel a bit uneven.
But that's kind of Cameron's thing, isn't it?
It is intrinsically James Cameron. He is defined by combining this massive, high-octane spectacle with intensely sincere, big emotions. It's like blockbuster tonal whiplash, but it is very consistent with his other work.
Okay, so let's shift to the themes. If the plot was repetitive, did Fire and Ash at least offer a more nuanced, philosophical take on things?
The film definitely deepens the franchise's core motifs. You know, ecology versus exploitation, cultural survival, family, grief, identity, all that is still there.
But is it just more the same?
The sources confirm it mostly recontextualizes those themes. It shows us how the fire-adapted Na'vi might view exploitation differently from the forest Na'vi, for example, but it rarely introduces a radical new viewpoint or challenges the basic ideas.
And that consistency, again, it gets both praise for reinforcing the message and criticism for not having fresh insight.
That's the paradox in a nutshell. For fans, the consistency strengthens the message. For critics looking for growth, it felt like he was avoiding complexity.
So, after all that, what does this all mean? If you put the incredible visuals, the low critical scores, and the huge audience love into one final synthesis, what is the ultimate role of Fire and Ash in the saga?
I think the prevailing analysis is that Fire and Ash is fundamentally a bridge film. It is the central piece designed not to stand on its own, but to stitch everything together.
Yeah.
It introduces the characters and conflicts that will absolutely propel the final two movies, Avatar 4 and Avatar 5.
It's the middle chapter doing all the heavy lifting.
Yes. And that structural design is why it feels more like the central spine of a massive saga than a complete standalone story. The final judgment is that while it is one of the most visually breathtaking experiences of 2025, the spectacle is unparalleled. It uses that visual brilliance as a cover for a pretty limited and predictable core narrative.
It works best as a ritual then, a chance to just live in that world again.
That's the big takeaway. It is primarily an emotional and visual ritual, not a groundbreaking piece of narrative fiction. It delivers an incomparable experience that successfully uses familiarity to satisfy its fans, even while it frustrates anyone looking for narrative risk.
So the challenge for James Cameron is pretty clear. Avatar. Fire and Ash proves the public will still show up for the spectacle, but those franchise-low critical scores, they mark a very vivid and maybe a very telling turning point. Can the technical mastery keep outweighing narrative familiarity in the long run? Or will that reliance on visual compensation eventually lose its power? That's definitely something for you to mull over. Got any thoughts? What really stood out to you in this deep dive? Were you one of the critics who found the plot a bit repetitive, or were you one of the audience members who just loved a visual return to Pandora? Feel free to share your opinions or favorite moments in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think.
Ooh.
And hey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more reviews and content on the latest news, movies, dramas, and books. And hit that bell icon so you won't miss any new updates.